My name is Bea Tan, and as you may have heard during the introduction earlier, I used to teach in the public school. And maybe to quickly run you through the story as to how I ended up with this career, let me bring you back to the time when I was still a student here in Jude Catholic School. So in grade 6, I met an exceptional teacher. I had a Chinese teacher who during that time had several opportunities to work abroad. She has both a mathematics and an engineering degree, and she was very good. But instead of leaving, she opted to stay here and teach. And so I asked her why. And this is what she told me. We live in the Philippines, and therefore, it is the Filipino children we must teach. For the record, that was the first time I ever heard someone speak about giving back. But what really struck me during that conversation was realizing that her refusal to leave was deeply anchored on her belief that since she is a foreigner living in the Philippines, then her loyalty must belong to the Filipino people. And therefore, she took it upon herself to do everything that she can in her own capacity, just to give back to no less than the Filipino people. Of course, I grew so much, I got inspired with what the teacher said, okay? I told myself that I wanted to do something that she was able to do. First, I wanted to give back to the Philippines, and second, I wanted to be relevant. But it wasn't until I graduated from college when I started giving my career options a first thought. I didn't know if I would want to get into law school, take an MBA, perhaps help out with the family business, or maybe do a corporate job. I didn't know. So I was so confused, I went up to a friend and asked her, how did you know which job you would choose? And this is what she told me. Go where you think you're needed more, and go where you think you could do more. Doon ka sa kung saan palagay mo mas marami kang magagawa, at kung saan ka mas kailangan. But the problem now is this. Of all the options I mentioned earlier, none of those things seem to fit in this equation. And I told my friend I wanted to do something more meaningful. And so she made the follow-up question and told me this. Why don't you try working for the government? And I went totally blank, just because I never thought about it. But then my friend went on to tell me that working for the government would be a win-win situation. And this is what she told me. If you work for the government, yung magagawa mo mas mararamdaman. Dahil sa kinonti-konti ng tao na nagtatrabaho para sa gobyerno at sa dinami-dami ng mga tao sa Pilipinas na pwede mong tulungan, chances are, what you'll do will make a difference. If my friend were a meme, I imagined her to look this way. Because she was really passionate about it and she was pushing for it. Meanwhile, I was starting to consider it. And I wanted to get a good sense of how the people around me would react should I push through with this decision. And this is what I got. And then I told my parents about it. But then it quickly escalated to this. Okay, so this is me trying to explain, okay, minus the tears. This is me trying to explain to my parents why I wanted to do it. I told them that it's my passion project, meaning that if I don't do this now, I'd still want to do it later on in my life. But best if they will let me do it now, because I'm still young, I still have the energy all the time, and that idealism in me, so I have to do it now. And so, of course, they conceded. And after that, I accepted the challenge. Around that time, I encountered publicity from this organization called Teach Her the Philippines, or TFP. So very quickly, what is Teach Her the Philippines? It's a nonprofit organization that believes that education is everybody's responsibility. So TFP works closely with the government agencies such as DepEd and contracts certain individuals to teach full-time in the public school for 2 years. So the commitment is just for 2 years. I signed up, and when I got in, I really felt that it was the right thing for me because this seems to be the type of giving back my Chinese teacher was telling me about. First, it caters to the Filipino people, and second, it's something relevant. And I heard from the friend, kung gusto mo daw malaman ang kwento ng lipunan, kailangan mong pumasok sa public school because they are a good representation of the masses. So I went in. And I was assigned to teach in Apolonio Samson Elementary School. It's a small elementary school in Balintawak. And I was tasked to teach grade 3. Section was Magalang. These are my students during the first few days of class. They probably know I'm taking a picture, that's why they sat down. But on the normal circumstance, magulo yan. Okay? During that time, a few weeks into school, I felt that I needed to get to know my students more. And then I discovered later on that much can be revealed about the personal lives of my students through the homeworks and assignments that they turn into me. So what I did was that I religiously checked all of the homeworks and came up with the conclusion. And that is, yung mga estudyante ko, may pagkapilosopo, may pagkapilyo, pero matatalino sila. I'll walk you through some of their works to make you understand what type of students I teach, okay? So look at this question. The question is, tama o mali? Tapos yung sagot ng mga bata, tamali. As if they're gonna get a half point for doing that, right? And then I asked this question, kung si Raymond ay isang hayop, ano siya? The answer I was expecting would be, Raymond is a dog, he's a man's best friend. But you know, instead the kid said, kung si Raymond ay isang hayop, siya si Doraemon. And of course, Raymond cried, and I felt really bad about it. And then I asked the class, bigyan mo ang pangalan ng bagyo na nagsisimula sa letter S. And there was this kid who enthusiastically raised her hand and said, Ma'am, sunshine, sunshine yung pangalan ng bagyo. And I felt niloloko niya ako. And the third one's got to be my favorite. Good, blank, and best. Could you give me the response? It's better. Okay, if you ask that to the top tier section, they'd be able to give you the correct answer. But then, I was teaching a developing section. So all 50 students were just staring at me blankly, and they didn't know the answer. Until one kid raised his hand and told me, Ma'am, sobrang hirap. Clue na lang po, please. And I said, sige. Good, be, and all 50 shouted, very good. Sabi ko, my gosh, what did I do wrong? Ako ba nagturo niyan? Good, very good, best. So I asked the kid, okay, sige. Bakit good, very good, best? Kasi ma'am, pag nagtatatak ka, when you give us stamps, it's always good, very good, and excellent. And it's never good, very good, and best. So noted, mali ko yun. Okay? Moving on. Sanhi at bunga. The question is, laging nagsasanay sa pag-awit si Laika. So what would happen to her? The politically correct answer would be for her to win the competition, right? But then half of the class said, napaos siya. Which is also true. So check. I asked them to illustrate Dr. Jose Rizal. I gave this kid an 8 out of 10 because he admitted to asking the mother to doing the assignment. This kid a 9 for effort. But out of the 250 students that I teach that time, I only gave one kid a 10 over 10. And it's this kid. Because he's so smart, he just put a piece of paper on top of the 1 peso coin and shaded it. And told me that it's Jose Rizal. So he's very smart, di ba? Okay, moving on, metaphors. Ang nanay ko ay parang, I was expecting answers like, ilaw ng tahanan. But you know, one kid told me, ang nanay ko ay parang tsinelas. And I asked why. Sunod lang po ng sunod. Starting to reveal something so personal about their lives. And I knew that I was up for something. I asked them, ang buhay ng tao ay parang buhok, ma'am. Minsan mahaba, minsan maikse. And at that point, I could not believe that I was just talking to 9-year-olds. I'll make you feel even more emotional. I asked the question, ano yung pangarap mo sa buhay? I had to look at the drawing closely because it seems like I saw the mom dead. No? Did he want the mom dead? And then I read at the text closely. Yes, ang pangarap ko sa buhay ay mabigyan lang ng maayos na libingan ang mga magulang ko. So I realized that my students were doing very ordinary things. But then somehow, they always put an extra. Extra effort, extra wit. And those ordinary things no longer becomes ordinary. It becomes extraordinary. Because of all these things, I thought I was off to a good start. But then things escalated quickly. And from having a harmonious relationship, things turned sour. Okay? They started to become rowdy, and there came a point wherein I no longer knew how to quiet down a class. So one day, I went inside the classroom and got schooled. A student apparently drew this on the board, and this is my teacher anger meter. This is what's written. Si Ma'am Bea ay galit na galit, galit, kalmado, masaya, masayang masaya. So I asked the kid, what am I going to do with it? And then he gave me a piece of chalk and he told me, Ma'am, kukulayan mo lang yan, ganito, pag galit na galit ka na, iakyat mo yan. Tapos, kapag na-reach mo na yung tuktok, pag puno na, walk out ka na. So apparently, that's how it works. And so I asked the kid, pagkatapos ko mag-walk out, paano na tayo? And then he told me, bukas ulit, ma'am. And in my mind, aba, sinaswerte siya. And so I asked, bakit biglang may extra life? And the kid told me, kasi ma'am, kapag hindi ka nag-restart, hindi rin kami makaka-restart. Meaning, pagpapasok kayong galit bukas, parang pinapangunahan nyo na. Eh wala pa naman. Malay nyo, maging okay naman pala. Pero dahil galit ka na, di mo na makikita yon. So at that point, I tried to understand what he was saying. I took note of it, but I didn't really understand. Because sometimes, when things get really tough, it's hard for you to reconcile, right? I would never forget the time I filled up that teacher tank. And it was because of this kid. He was my first ultimate test of patience. Normal age for grade 3 would be 8 to 9 years old. He's slightly older, maybe 11 or 12. He's a non-reader. He cannot write. He cannot count. He was very rowdy. He was very disrespectful. He despised me. And he was very disruptive in class. I tried to know why. And sometimes when I walked the students home, I asked them about things regarding their personal lives. Tinanong ko yung isang bata, bakit magulo? And he told me, Ma'am, he doesn't understand anything, kaya manggugulo na lang siya. He doesn't know how to read, doesn't know how to write, doesn't know how to count. So manggugulo na lang siya. So I told him, okay, I'll teach this kid how to read. I offered him my time. Sabi ko, sige, tuturuan kita. And he often told me that he would come, but he never showed up. During my first year of teaching, I went to live in that community, and so I only have my weekends off. I'd go home every weekend, and just because I'm offering this special class to Bernard, I could no longer go home. And normally, when he would tell me that he would come but doesn't show up, I confront him and I ask him. Tapos ang sasabihin lang sa akin ng bata, ano ngayon kung di ako nagpakita? So one day, I got fed up, I went up to him, became confrontational, and told him, alam mo, mas maswerte ka pa sa akin because you get to see your family every day. I sacrifice my Saturdays for you, but it doesn't seem like you care. And I'm not even sure if you're worth it. That question might have made or break the kid. The teachers told me that Bernard has been in grade 3 for 3 times, and he never gets past the second week. So I'm quite nervous because baka hindi kami umabot. So I prayed that he'd show up. And I was lucky because he did. And the following day, he told me, Ma'am, magbasa na po tayo mamaya. Many teachers rallied behind me to help me put Bernard at grade level. And I was so proud to see him write his first letter, his first word, the first sentence, up until he became a proficient reader. But then I felt that something was missing. If you've read the book Wonder by R.J. Palacio, there's a quote there that says, I think there should be a rule that everyone in the world should get a standing ovation at least once in their lives. I knew that I wanted that so much for Bernard. I knew that I was going to leave the public school, and I want him to be self-sufficient. He needed to get hold of something he can work on, even if I'm no longer around. So one day, I asked him to come to school, and the instruction was merely for him to write everything that I've been dictating. I asked a couple of kids to come along. Tapos sulat lang ng sulat si Bernard. From 1 o'clock until 4 o'clock, sulat lang siya ng sulat. And finally, he asked me, Ma'am, puno na, buburahin ko na ba? I asked him not to. Instead, I asked him to get to the backmost part of the room, stand there. Just look at everything he has written, from left to right, from top to bottom. Sabi ko, Miss Bernard, pagmasdan mo mabuti, titigan mo. And then I threw in a question. Nakapagsulat ka na ba ng ganyan karami sa buong buhay mo? And he told me, hindi pa, ma'am. Ngayon pa lang. So that was a very emotional moment for the two of us because at that time, I knew that I was able to give Bernard his standing ovation. Sometimes it makes you emotional, okay? So I'll bring you back to the teacher meter and why it's important. Early on into the school year, the kid told me that I have to keep on pushing the restart button. Apparently, this is what he meant. When things are already at their worst, there's apparently no way to go but better. Better, hindi very good. Okay. And finally, I was able to see this come to life through Bernard's story. We started off really bad, right? Galit na galit until masayang masaya. I realized that had I not pushed the restart button over and over again, I would not have seen this happen. These are my first batch of kids in 2013, and I was there in April 2017 to see everyone graduate from grade 6. But the most important part was seeing Bernard graduate, finally, after a long time. That was the reason why I went to the public school. I finally understood. And maybe 3 things for you to remember, no, before we part ways. To all the teachers out there, I think you have to remember these 3 things. First is you have to keep on taking risks. Because the only way to save our dreams is by being generous with ourselves. Second is take each day one anxiety attack at a time. Because I realized too while teaching that when you overwork your strengths, they too can become your weaknesses. And finally, the most important thing is take heart. Okay, do not be discouraged by situations wherein you don't get to do things right the first time. Because after all, experience is what you get when you do not get what you want. So that ends it. Thank you very much.